Hello and welcome back to Soundout's Toy Chest. This week's episode features a super robot of sorts in the Super Robot Chogokin line. We have a new robot to show you. But first I must reiterate this week's clue. We are the Soldiers of Eternity. Posted it on Twitter, and it is a little bit more vague than last week's clue. So without further ado, let's reveal Super Robot Chogokin Mazinkaiser SKL. Before we get into the figure itself, I did want to briefly mention the packaging, as it is quite awesome. It really invokes Mazinkaiser SKL, and I really like it. Super Robot Chogokin packaging is always cool, and this is no exception. Got all kinds of artwork on it, and then information. But, yeah, that's all. So here is Kaiser himself. Now, Mazinkaiser SKL is from the three-part OVA, Mazinkaiser SKL, which was released in 2010. And this is actually not the first Super Robot Chogokin figure for the character, as his original release was as a first-run bonus with the first DVD of Mazinkaiser SKL, which that makes that figure really hard to find, and I've never seen one for sale. I was really happy to see Bandai give this guy a revival. Completely new figure, brand new joint system. Everything looks so much better on this figure. I'm a huge fan of the anime he's from, and this was well worth the money I spent on him. Now, I will say this to start. His average cost is about $90, which seems pricey for a Super Robot Chogokin, but he is actually quite tall. In fact, if I were to bring in a recent Super Robot Chogokin from the Gaigar line, like Gaigar, you can see he does tower above Gaigar here. He's more than a head taller than Gaigar. So that's really cool. That means he is larger, and he is about the same size as the other Mazinger series Super Robot Chogokins. So that's really cool. So, looking at the figure himself, we'll start off with his head here. Now, unfortunately, the skull piloter does not remove from his helmet, but it is because of how tiny it is up here. That would be a piece that could get lost easily. I'm glad it is solid in place. You can see you've got the guns on his chest here, with the great little skull face on the center. It looks really nice. All these spikes are super pointy, so be careful when you own this figure. All these spikes are pointed. There's a nice mix of metallic silver as well as gloss black that make them really good. Love the gold accents on the boots and the fingers. You can see the knuckles there have gold, which is pretty cool. Overall, the figure is quite sturdy. Naturally, coming from a show that has one of the most metal anime soundtracks I've ever heard, he has a lot of die cast. Mostly his feet, in his knee joints, in his hip joints, in his elbow joints, some in his lower arm, a little bit in the shoulders, and a little bit in the chest area. But other than that, he's not too bogged down with weight like the Gaigar SRCs are, which are the only other SRCs I have. So he is super heavy in that he is full of diecast, but it does not restrict his posing at all, which is fantastic. Now, speaking of posing, he does have some options here. First of all, the neck is on a double ball joint, which means there's a ball joint at the base of the neck and one at the top. This can get him to some looking down poses, some looking up poses, some half-turned, I'm upset poses. Yeah, the nice shoulder joints. And the shoulder joints are super complicated, as you can see here. They not only have a hinge swivel out, the shoulder pad moves, but they also can swing in, and there's a ball joint at the same connection there. There's like two ball joints. His arms are intense, and then accommodate for that, the handle of the gun can move out of the way so he can get his arm across, even when you have the guns in place. He does not have a bicep swivel. As you can see, the arm does come out of place when you try. That is slightly unfortunate, but he does have one below the elbow here, and he does have a double jointed elbow, which actually has a nice ratchet in addition to a piece of plastic covering up the jointed, moved area, which looks really nice. I think that's fantastic. Normal ball joint wrist, which is fine. You can also remove his arm, so you can do his rocket punch. I believe the port is the same size as the Mazinger Z effect parts, so you can still use the same rocket effects on here. Plus, you do have a peg on the back, which I think is also the universal connection. Working on the chest, he's got an upper ball joint, lower ball joint, and a waist joint. So he's got all kinds of movement here that all works really well, even with the guns in place. You got outward hip on a ball joint that is super heavy, plus you have a ball joint here. So you got a ball and socket there. So you actually can reach insane amount of leg movability. As well as his double jointed knee, which I gotta say is super impressive as it does pull that off. You actually can see because of the metal and the plastic, it does split the plastic a bit, but not really an issue so far. His feet as well have deep ankle pivot, no toe joint, but all those ball jointness. So he is ready to like totally brawl with someone. Because he has no just cause. His two pilots don't need any just cause. So, Mazinkaiser on his own is really cool and all, but you gotta give him some accessories. First of all, his hand options. He comes with 2 alternate sets of hands. You get these grappling hands, as well as these holding hands, which dual for the swords and for the sword and the gun, which is really cool. You also do get this piece for a Tamashi stage connection. It just wedges in his butt like that. It's farther back from like directly into the crotch, which is really nice because that's always super awkward. So you do have that as an option, and it can be used for a lot of posing abilities, especially with the figure's balanced weight. You can pull things off like this, and that's just really cool. So anyways, let's talk about this guy's weaponry. First up, we have the signature Zanber. Huge sword that Kaiser wields. And when Kaido's in charge, he usually controls this, as he is the sword expert. Now, the Zanber has some really cool things to it, so I will pull it out of his hand for the moment. First of all, it's in Bandai Metallic Silver and Gold, their 2 best colors. And it looks super sharp, in more ways than one, because all these points are really sharp, which is really nice. I love the black paint added. This thing looks friggin' awesome, and it's gigantic, too. It is, you know, taller than him. And in case that's not long enough for you, the handle does extend for dual-wielding action, which really helps across things like his chest. And this is show accurate, as in the series, the handle did extend, so you could actually wield it across his cape. Which is really cool, because, yeah, it's a signature weapon, pretty much. And I'm super impressed by the elbow joints being able to support the weight of this thing. You can fling this around. The only thing that's going to give out is really the wrist joints, and that's fixable. So you have all kinds of range of movement with the Zanber, and you could even pull off the pose for the Thor Hammer Breaker, even if we don't have a wing cross yet. Please be planning Wingle at some point, Bandai. I really hope you have that on the table. The next piece of Kaiser's weaponry is the breast gun. Now, it's on the breast of his chest, so that explains the name, but it is a little tricky to actually activate, and that's why I do want to show it on camera. In the show, he just kind of reaches in and pulls them out, which is fine, but for a toy that actually needs to physically hold this in, we do have to do some things. First of all, the gold skull here has to be pulled out. And this can be really tricky because it's really nice and tight in there, but once you get this pulled out, and you want to not lose that, then the 2 guns come off the chest, and you can see all this great added gold that was beneath, which is really nice. And it does warn you that the paint on his chest can get rubbed off if you do this wrong. Put the gold skull back in, and then you take these 2 pieces here. So first you got to remove the barrels. The barrels are a connected piece. Then you have 2 separate guns. Then you get separate barrels for each that are alternate parts. And now you're ready to have his 2 pistols. So the pistols do a great job of replicating Megami's more tactical style, more precision-based than Kaido's kill everything with sword technique. And it looks really nice. The guns being out of his chest give more range in the torso, and they look really good. Now, unfortunately, because of the hand shape and the length of the pistol barrels, it's really tricky to have him flip the guns around and use them as small axes. So that is one downside. And it's really my only complaint with the figure is that you can't pull that off, nor is there an alternate handle to slap these two together into a battle axe. And if lack of accessories is the only problem a figure has, still doing pretty good. But I hope that maybe we can get a set with a wing cross, a battle damage Kaiser head, the battle axe pieces, and maybe some alternate handles so you can use them as axes. Other than that, I really don't have any complaints with these guns. They work really well, and the added articulation of the new figure type compared to the old Kaiser, it works really, really well, and I'm super happy as this gives them a ton more posing options. Our final accessory for Kaiser is the cape. Now, the cape is interesting because the figure is mostly promoted with him wearing the cape. First of all, it's a badass cape. Second of all, it instantly distinguishes him from the original SRC that they released with the DVD. But the thing really had a short lifespan in the series. Kaiser shows up with it in his first scene, but then it gets lit on fire and is gone within a minute. It actually has more life being the album cover for Loudness' song The Danger Zone, but here we are with his cape. So, what's really cool about the cape is that it does attach to his back. That back connector I showed earlier is where it plugs in, and it does fit nicely behind the guns, which is really cool. And if you did want to have him wearing the cape and take the guns off, it's not necessary to hold in place. These pieces here are articulated on ball joints, but not much movement you're going to get out of there. The whole cape back here actually does swing out and is on two ball joints back here. Really squeaky ones. And they do rotate, so you do get some cape posing options. You can have it flared out like this as he's like charging with his guns onto, and he's just like ready to friggin' kill everything because he's Mazinkaiser's, you know, no one's gonna stop him. But you can have them hanging back, splayed out. You can have this chest piece popping off, apparently. That's not good. Okay, there we go. And you can kind of have poses like that going on. You do have some options. It does make them a little back heavy when you flare the cape out like that, but it does look good and it works well for what it is. But I wish it would have been used more in the series for it to be included here, but it is a nice addition, and I do appreciate it. So in the end, Super Robot Chogokin Mazinkaiser SKL cape version, I guess, is a fantastic action figure. I've gotten a lot of robot figures in lately, and this one stands out as being pretty much the best one I've got. And he's definitely the best Super Robot Chogokin I have. He improves on everything that the other SRCs did well, but fixed a lot of the problems they have. He feels sturdy. He doesn't feel like he's going to fall apart or fall over under his own weight. He is a fantastic action figure that I've spent hours posing in multiple poses. He's got a lot to him, and I'm really, really impressed. And I would highly recommend him, especially to fans of Mazinkaiser Skull. You guys out there that are fans like me, we got to support it, because, you know, 3-episode OVA, we get this one figure. Maybe we'll get a Wingle if he sells well enough. And so far, he seems to have been doing pretty well in sales. So, here's hoping for a Wingle, or at least a Wing Cross, and some accessories for Kaiser. Overall, I'm super impressed, and I definitely recommend him. He's hard to recommend on a casual pickup, though, because of his price tag, but if you find a good deal, go ahead and get him. He's really solid and really, really awesome. So anyways, stay tuned for next week, where we'll be reviewing something that comes from the East. The slightly undefeated. Anyways, be sure to check out HeroTalk.com for all further updates on Mazinkaiser SKL, whether they be another Super Robot Chogokin or about the Cyborg 009 anime made by the same guy, which I'm also super excited for. And also, be sure to stay tuned, as this channel has a lot of robots on it, especially since everything I bought in March was a robot. So, yeah. Anyways, stay tuned for more. Tonks of Sound saying goodbye.